Good morning, it is 8 a.m. on April 5th, 2018, and this is By the Seat of Our Pants. I'm Dillon Edwards, and joining me from our studio in Canyon, Texas is my lovely co-host, Bronwyn.
Hello.
Bronwyn, what are we talking about today?
Well, as many of you know, I got engaged in December and have been slowly getting things together for the big day in September. Now, Dillon, you know from your brother's wedding that it is a ton of work to get one of these things together with the pictures, the invitations, the dress, the cake, the food, the venue, and so on. And it's really tough to stick to a budget and keep track of everything that you've got done and still need to do.
Yeah, you're so right. My family went crazy trying to keep up with it all.
Well, it got me thinking that you don't really see a ton of advertisement for weddings or related material, at least not year-round advertisement. And in thinking of that, I was wondering, why not? So today's episode, entitled Wedding Advertising, is all about that.
Flight attendants, prepare for takeoff, please.
According to Fortune.com, the average cost of a wedding in the United States is $35,329. The regional average for West Texas is closer to $21,688. When you consider the number of weddings that take place just here in the West Texas, you're looking at a multi-million-dollar industry that continues to grow with the modern fixation of what the perfect wedding should be. To get an idea about how the average cost has changed over the decades, we went to the campus of West Texas A&M University and talked to a few happily married individuals about their weddings.
How much was your wedding?
My wedding, let's see, we got married at Country Home Weddings in Canyon, so it was turnkey. So meaning they took care of everything, the cake and the food and all that. I would say it was approximately $7,000 probably.
Our wedding was really low key because we got married in a small town in Louisiana, and so probably everything was planned by my family and his family. We probably spent less than $1,000.
Well, it's a long time ago. I do not. That was all my wife's doing.
Yeah.
I know looking at today's prices makes me think about it, but I'm certain it was less than $5,000, maybe even less than $2,500.
More than I anticipated. Somewhere between $16,000 to $18,000 for everything, including flowers and cake and all that jazz.
Well, that's interesting. I wish I could do my wedding for $1,500.
Right. So I have one question for you. And you have like 10 seconds to think of an answer. But have you seen any advertising for wedding-related material from before you signed up for like mailing lists or actively sought out the advertisements?
Other than Pinterest or just like me randomly looking up things, every girl has their dream Pinterest board. Not really, no.
Okay, well, with that in mind, we did a little research into when the first wedding advertisement was actually released to the public.
That's right. The earliest print advertisement we could find that referenced to weddings was from the late 1920s. The simple black and white poster featured a couple embraced in a kiss with a caption, "The Thrill of Thrills," in bold italics. The advert itself was intended to sell the Priscilla wedding ring, which cost a whopping $16. If you're curious, that would equal $230 in today's money.
That's really crazy, isn't it? Like, that's super cheap even like today if it was $230.
I bet my fiancé wish he could have paid $230
Yeah, Jake really
for
wishes
mine.
that much, yeah. So following that advertisement, companies continued to release wedding and jewelry advertisements, but we'll get into that a little later in the show. The adverts that we notice the most, though, are the ones for wedding dresses.
Most of these advertisements were drawn towards women with a certain social status and body type. It's interesting to see how society's depiction of the perfect woman has changed over the years. For instance, in the 1940s, Brides magazine, Ladies' Home Journal, and Women in Home magazines have all issues depicting petite, slender brides in A-line and ball gown-style dresses. These dresses cover the bride almost completely, leaving her wrist and neck visible. The issues also had the groom in many of the covers with the bride looking towards him as if to show her dependence. But in the late 50s and into the 60s, Brides and Pageant magazine released issues where the brides wore gowns with short sleeves, longer V-style necklines, and without the groom, showing the independence of the woman.
I also think it's interesting to see that the wording in these adverts have changed over the years. Like, we found a ton of sexist ads that referred to the bride as being the upcoming housewife or the homemaker in the making, implying that the woman would now be attending to her duties for staying home and providing for her husband. One advertisement that stood out to me the most was one for the meat thermometer from Taylor Instruments. The caption of this ad was "A gift to please the groom," and went on in the explanation that this thermometer, the bride can make the roast the way that he likes it. Mm-hmm. But from the late 60s to the modern time, the ads acknowledged that the woman had become more of an independent gender and more than capable of performing the same duties as a man.
Right. Another interesting advertisement in wedding advertising was the introduction of race. The oldest print advert that we found that featured a different race was an ad for the After Six formal wear. The 1970s ad featured the wedding couple in their formal wear with the caption, "It was the perfect wedding, the bride wore white, the groom wore After Six." After Six was primarily a men's formal wear distributor like today's Tuxedo Junction or Men's Warehouse. The ads were controversial. However, After Six had a boost in sales from the African American community and was heralded as a multicultural force for acceptance.
Now, in the early 21st century, we're still seeing groundbreaking advertising for the acceptance of homosexual and LGBT weddings. One of the largest for LGBT wedding endorsing is actually Tiffany's and Target. Both companies have been widely accepted by the LGBT-friendly community. However, they have also been on the receiving end of protests and boycotts, saying that the company has no right to accept same-sex couples as a reality. But if we, as a society, had retained the mentality that in the 1960s with racial injustice, we would never have accepted African Americans into our society the way that we have. And personally, I stand with these champions of love and applaud their ability to stand up for others.
And that is our cue for the commercial break. When we come back, when did it become a customary thing to have a diamond ring when you propose? Today's episode is brought to you by Optimum Nutrition. Optimum Nutrition, healthy products for a healthy world. This is by the seat of our pants.
Let me ask you something. How's that New Year's resolution going? Well, mine was not going very well. I promised myself that I'd go to the gym and be more active and eat healthier this year, but by the end of January, I was sitting on the couch, chowing down on a stuffed crust pizza and binge watching Netflix. My problem was that by the time I had free time to go work out, I was too tired to get up and go, until I got Optimum Nutrition's Amino Energy. Replacing my morning coffee with this simple and delicious product has given me steady energy throughout the day and leaves me with enough energy when I want to go work out in the evening. With just 10 calories per serving and packed full of your recommended amino acids and vitamins, it's really a no-brainer. To get your free sample of Optimum Nutrition's Amino Energy, go to amazon.com/flyby and use the promo code RESOLUTION. That's amazon.com/flyby, promo code RESOLUTION. Don't be stuck with another year of failed promises. Get Amino Energy today.
The thing that I love about Zola is how it gives us an opportunity to make an emotional connection.
Get to tell your story. Why do you want this item? And allows for more of a connection.
Introducing Zola, the online custom wedding registry where you can register for anything and manage everything in one place.
My grandparents loved Zola's customer service.
You're not only getting things that you want, you're actually setting up experiences for the people that you want to be in the future.
Zola, we'll do anything for love.
And welcome back to By the Seat of Our Pants. I'm Dillon Edwards, and joining me is my co-host Bronwyn Guffels. We are in the middle of our episode focused on wedding advertisements. We've discussed the print advertising, the evolution of the modern woman and her role in the home, and the introductions of race and sexual orientation. Now, let's get into that age-old question about the bling-bling. Why, oh why, does there have to be a ring anytime someone proposes? When did it start? Why is our society so infatuated with the idea? Earlier in the show, we asked several happily married couples at the West Texas A&M University in Canyon, Texas, what their experience was like planning their wedding. We also asked them the cost of their wedding rings at the time, and I think this will surprise a lot of you. And how long have you been married?
Let's see, it will be 42 years.
42, congratulations.
Yeah.
13 years, it will be 14 years in July. And let me just say that my birthday is July 28th and my husband's is July 23rd. And we got married the Saturday in between, so July 24th.
And whenever he proposed, was it a surprise or did you guys kind of plan it before?
Well, we had dated for 2 years, and the proposal happened over a grilled cheese sandwich. And he said, well, would you marry me? And I said, is this for real? And so it took me a while to realize that, yes, he was actually asking me over this grilled cheese sandwich.
Well, it was, I think I knew that we would eventually get married and that he would propose. So I would say that it was a surprise.
I kind of hinted for a long time, probably at least 9 months, saying he worked at a jewelry store. So I was like, come on, get this done. So I have fun memories of that.
I think it was 4,000. Our ring story was a little unique as well. He didn't want to pick out the ring because he was like, that's too much pressure. And the only thing that I had ever said was that I wanted something more interesting, not just a solitaire. So I wanted something interesting. Well, when he proposed with just a solitaire. And after I had it on my hand, he goes, that's not your ring. And I was like, what do you mean? You just put it on my hand. And he said, no, that's just the diamond. You get to pick out the setting.
My ring was about $2,000, so that was, 14 years ago. Well, it was probably, we were engaged for about a year and a half, so 15 years ago, yeah.
Remember about how much the ring cost at the time?
At the time, I think we spent $600, but that was an interesting story too. My husband is really frugal and always looks for best deals, and so he got a phone number of this person who handles diamonds and does rings on the side, and so we went to his house and he put out these different stones and they were really beautiful, and then he also put his revolver on the table, so it wasn't the kind of jewelry store experience I had expected. But the ring that he made us was really unique.
Do you remember about how much the ring was worth or what it cost?
I think around $2,000.
So Dr. Henson's story about the revolver is pretty cool, right?
Right.
I was laughing so hard whenever she was telling me about that story.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. So when we were preparing for this episode, we started seeing a difference in wedding advertisements starting around the 1920s.
According to an article we found in the New York Times called How Diamonds Become Forever, it's hard to imagine a time when diamond engagement rings were not the norm. Today, even after a decade and a half of bad press about blood diamonds and working conditions in the mines, among other concerns, 75% of brides in the United States wear one, including myself, according to Kenneth Gassman, president of the Jewelry Industry Research Institute.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Before we did the research for this episode, I always just thought that it was the norm to get a diamond ring whenever you wanted to get engaged.
Well, it was really all because of one woman and the signature line that she came up with. Frances Garrity came up with the line, "A diamond is forever," in 1947 while she was lying in bed and realized she hadn't thought of a signature line for a series of ads she had been working on. When she pitched it at a meeting the next day, she said that, quote, "nobody jumped."
That seems to be the case with a lot of really successful catchphrases and that agencies came up with over the time.
Right, so true. But later in life, she got hired at NW Air, and her main client was De Beers, when she wrote all of their ads for 25 years. The first couple of years were not so successful with the slogan and trying to get people to want to buy a diamond engagement ring because back then it was considered a waste of money.
Right. And since De Beers controlled the world's supply of rough diamonds, antitrust laws prohibited the company from doing business in the United States. These ads could not promote De Beers or even show pictures of jewelry. So the agency commissioned bold paintings by artists like André Derain and purchased pre-existing works by Dali and even Picasso. According to How Diamonds Became Forever article in the New York Times.
It wasn't until early 1950s when the sales finally started to pick up. They increased by 55% in the United States.
The line "A Diamond is Forever," which has appeared in every De Beers engagement ad since 1948. In 1999, 2 weeks before Miss Garrity died at the age of 83, Advertising Age named it the slogan of the century.
The diamond engagement ring. How else could 2 months' salary last forever? A diamond is forever. De Beers.
And that, my friends, is how it all started. And now we base everything on that little rock that sits on our finger for all the years to come. I always joke with Jake and tell him that I want a newer and bigger ring for every year that we're married. He jokes right back and says that we won't be married long.
Flight attendants, please prepare for landing.
And that's our pilot letting us know that it's time to land this episode. So to recap, we discussed the first print advertising for the weddings, the evolution of the brides from the 1920s to today and her role in the home, the introductions of race and sexual orientation, and the amazing story behind the diamond ring.
We would like to thank all of our interviewees for their time and adding to this episode. The New York Times, Dr. Brooks, of course, my lovely fiance Jake, because if it wasn't for him, we probably would have never done this podcast, and the blog Found in Mom's Basement.
Join us next time as we discuss the evolution of baseball advertising. I'm Dillon Edwards.
And I'm Bronwyn Guthels. Thanks for listening to By the Seat of Our Pants.
This episode of By the Seat of Our Pants was brought to you by Zola.com, an online wedding registry that makes it easier to get what you want on your big day.